Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Siyabonga Spelman, and today I'll be talking about the diary screen. Now, if you've ever looked at the diary and thought to yourself, that looks a bit complex or complicated, that's a completely fair reaction, and that's only because when a system does a lot, it can feel overwhelming at first glance. But today I want to take you behind the curtain and show you something else entirely. That the GoodX diary is not complicated, it's comprehensive. Now, as I said, my name is Siyabonga Spelman, and today we're going to go over just how comprehensive, how customizable, and how scalable the GoodX diary can be. Right? We're going to look at how you can read it, how you can move through it, and really how you can customize it and make it your own. So, first and foremost, we're going to start with the overall layout. Right? The layout is based on a logical structure, simple and logical structure. First, we've got the system navigation and user information, and over there, the system navigation are the different parts you could navigate on the system. And over on that side, we've got the user information, we've got our settings there, and we've got our logged in user. As you can see there, that's Sam, the practice manager, which is the role that I would like to be taking today as I explain the diary screen. Now, especially there, the logged in user is of importance because everything that happens on the diary can be audited, right? So you always want to make sure that the correct user is logged in. Below that, we've got our appointment and grid display. And our appointment and grid display is divided into two parts, essentially. We've got each row that's associated with a time slot, and up there, we've got our display filters. Now, we don't have information here as yet, but once we populate our diary, we can then filter it how we would like, all right? So that's the layout I want us to think of, right? We've got our system, we've got our top layout there, and here at the bottom, it's the appointment grid together with the filters that works together. Okay. Now, as I've said, each row is a space for you to create a booking. So now we're just going to create a booking, and once you click on that space, this is the screen that comes up where you can add or edit a booking that you have, right? So we're going to start with this area over here, just a brief overview of that, go into the middle section and the bottom section. Now, up top, we have our booking details. As you can see, there's the diary. It's the type of booking that we have, the status of the patient, that the patient is currently booked. But most importantly, I want us to look at these two sections over here, the date and the time. Although you click on any row or any appointment that's there, you could always then, adjust your time and your date accordingly, right? So those are just the details, and you can add your reasons and so forth. Those are just the booking details. Now, we've got the booking details, but who are we booking? It's either the person is already on the system or it is a new patient. So let's start with if the patient is already on the system, right? Now we're going to go to this middle section. We've covered that. And this is where, if the patient is already on the system, you could type and drop down will appear, or you could click on that ellipse there. Once you click on that ellipse, you will then be inside your system. You will see all the debtors that you have, all the patients that you have, and you can simply select your patient and make your booking in that way, right? Now, if it's a new patient, we don't have any details of that patient. We're going to have to now fill in the debtor details, right? And every field with an asterisk is a compulsory field. Those are fields that we have to put in, right? So let's populate our field. And there's a difference between a debtor and a patient, right? The person who's the patient is not necessarily always the person paying for the account. However, if it is the same person, we don't have to now rewrite the same information over on the other side. We simply click the duplicate debtor and we populate our patient details. And now we click save and we have our booking. That's part one of everything, right? We have our details. Now, before I continue, you will see that once we have our booking there, once you click on the booking, only once you click on the booking will this sidebar appear, because as I was explaining the layout, I didn't explain anything about the sidebar, and that's because there was no patient booking. But now, because we've created a patient booking, we have a sidebar. Now, this sidebar is simply an extension of this booking, right? So everything that we see here is the same thing that we see on that sidebar. And if I click anywhere else, that sidebar will disappear. Okay, so right now, the patient is not on the system. Remember, we just created this patient, we inputted the data details and the patient details, and the person is not on the system. So as you can see, the patient is not on the system, there is no file number, right? And you can see we have no access to any of the system's functions. And most importantly, how you can quickly see that this person is not on the system is with the black A that we have over there. Okay, so for us to now create a file for the patient and activate the system, we go over to data add. And we populate our information accordingly on this screen. We click save, and what do we now have? We have an active sidebar, complete with the option to now use all the system's functions. And as you can see there, our booking icons are now alive. Everything is now working. We've got a file number there as well. And all the patient details correlate with the patient that we have there. Okay, just some information, and the patient is now on the system. Okay, so these are the patient details. As we know, the sidebar communicates with the booking that we have. But now, what are these icons over here? These are the booking icons, right? These are the booking icons. Now, these booking icons tell you exactly the file health of the patient, okay? And simply by hovering over those booking icons, you can know exactly what is happening with your patient, right? So you don't have to guess. You never have to guess what's going on. It tells you there, clinical case, you've got documents, switch history, and it will tell you the clinical case, the following notes are not yet completely finalized. Now, where do you go to finalize these notes that we're speaking of, right? So, clinical matches with the clinical tab over there, so you can go and finalize whatever notes have not been finalized. We go over to documents as well. It tells you documents outstanding. You got your ID, medical aid card, and you've got your ID document. Those are outstanding. Now, how do we fix that from red to green? We can simply go there and we add our documents, right? Now, switch and invoice work together, because switching is when you sort of take the invoice and you take it over to the medical aid. So before we can switch, we've got to invoice. So everything that we can now fix with our patient file health is over there on that invoice tab. And once you get into the invoice tab, you'll be provided with the option to then switch. Okay. Account simply relates to the status of the patient's account. These two work together. Over there, you can see how much the patient owes, how much the medical aid owes. Right? So that's the account, and it tells you this account is totally paid up, so we're happy with that. And that icon is green. Next, we have the validation. Now, the validation is specifically for the medical aid. Right? So we're validating that the patient does have a medical aid. And for us to do anything about the validation, we go over to the data edit. It's no longer data add, now it's data edit. And once we go in there, you'll be presented with this button here. It says validate, benefit check, selected patient. And simply with a click of a button, you can know that the patient is valid, that the membership is valid, and you can see the benefits of that specific patient, right? And even when you go back to the diary sidebar, it will give you the information there as well, and you can know that this patient that's walking in has been validated by the medical aid, no calling, simply with the click of a button, right? Now let's go over to the last one. We've got the patient verification. Now this patient verification is the security measure, so that you know that the patient that's in front of you is the actual file that you have opened. We don't want to open the wrong file, right? And do things on the file that's not for the patient that we have there. So there are two ways for us to verify, right? You can either match the current photo with the ID, or you could use your own discretion because the patient is there in front of you. Now, once the user confirms the patient identity, that's at your discretion to confirm the patient's identity. And yeah, then you can know that we have the right patient with us, right? And Once you verify the patient, it will turn green. The smiley face will turn green. And lastly, on the booking icons feature, we have the notebook. The notebook will track all the communication that has been sent to the patient, and it will tell you there in that section that Sam has sent a MyGC confirmation link. This is part of the auditing process, but this one is specifically for all the communication that has been sent. Let's say we have another person there, Amy, the receptionist. It will show that Amy has done this, has communicated with the patient in this manner. So with that, we now know how one booking is, and that's how it generally is, right? But we're now going to get busy. We're going to go from just one patient booking. Before we get into the display and filters, we need a data set for us to filter our diary, right? So let's populate our diary. And there we've got more bookings. And this is where things can feel a bit overwhelming, but still, I want us to keep in mind that the same way we have all these different bookings is the same booking that we just made, right? It's just the same person over and over, just for me, for the sake of my explanation, right? So don't get overwhelmed when you see the screen in this manner, right? So now that we've got a data set, we've got some data to now filter. Let's filter some of this data. We're going to go over the filter and display controls, right? So the first tab that we've got there is the diary dropdowns, and this diary dropdown shows you each practitioner's diary. Now we've got Health X Pretoria, we've got Health X Cape Town, and now you can see the different diaries that are in Pretoria, the different diaries that are in Cape Town. So for the sake of this example, we're going to go with Dr. Grobler. And right next to that, we've got the display options. We've got the options to show all bookings, which will just essentially show all the bookings that are currently, like show all the bookings, even the deleted bookings will also show if we click show bookings. Below that, we've got show tasks, which will then show the tasks that can be delegated to a specific user. We're going to get into that to say maybe if I'm a practice manager and I want to create a task for the receptionist, I don't have to walk over to the receptionist. I can simply create a task, and the task will populate on the receptionist's diary. So you can always show the task or hide the tasks. And next to that, we've got the filter booking. So as you saw, we had a very busy day. And if you want to look specifically for just one person in that entire diary, you can simply type in the person's name and it will populate. You'll just see the person's name over there. So it will filter and it will filter that booking and bring it to the top of the list. And next to that, we've got the date selector or the date finder. This will help you, especially if you want to make future bookings. Like you want to make a booking for next year, you want to make a booking for 2 months in advance. You can simply go over to that. You can simply select your date, make your booking, and simply click now to then now come back to present day, present time. Okay? And then right next to that over there, this is the diary types. So there's different ways that you can view your diary. If you are just one practice, you can always have the multi-day view, which will allow you to see a few days into the future as well. Alternatively, if you are working with more than one practitioner, as you saw, this is an example of Health X Pretoria. So we had Dr. Grobler and we had Dr. Klaus. So even if you have more practitioners over there, it will then extend and you have more and more practitioners that are there as well. Okay? And now, the next thing is that we have how you would stack your bookings. Okay? So you can stack your bookings by the booking type. We've got different booking types. You could have a patient that you book for a consultation, you could have a patient that you book for follow-up, or you could have a new patient as well. So if you just want to stack and see, okay, how many new patients do I have? How many follow-ups do I have? I don't want to go through the diary time for time and look for these specific patients. So I stack my diary by type. As you can see there, all the new patients are stacked together, the consultations are stacked together. Okay? So that's how you can stack. You can sort of like filter your diary in that manner. You could also filter your diary by status. So when I speak of status, I speak of the status that the patient is in the diary workflow, right? In the patient walkthrough, I'll say, right? So you can see that this specific patient, especially when you click there on the advanced status, you can see when the patient has gone from booked to arrived, so forth and so forth. So it just tells you where the patient is within the practice walkthrough or workflow rather. So you can stack in that way. Okay? And before I go on to the next one, we've got another nice feature, the available bookings. Let's say you get a call, for instance, from a patient, and you want to look at all the available bookings that you have. You simply click here, and then you can select, you can filter the start date to the end date if the patient asks, how's your diary looking for next week? Then you can adjust your dates accordingly, and you can also add the number of rows over there, and you can see, how many available bookings you have. Okay, so now that we have went over the overall diary screen, I want to put it into practice. Okay, so I'm going to take on the role of Sam in this example. Let's say now the practice starts to grow, and I now have to delegate tasks. I can't keep doing everything by myself. So I hire Amy, the receptionist. We partner with Dr. Smith, and we have Tabo, who's going to be the billing clerk. All right? Everyone sees the same diary screen by default, and they have the same features, access to the same features. But the question becomes why? Because each and every single person has a different role to play within the practice. So that could also pose some security risks that we do not want. So I, as a practice manager, having hired my receptionist, let's say, for instance, Amy, as I put in the example, don't want it to have access maybe to anything billing related or anything clinical related. We have to be POPI compliant. So what do I do as a practice manager? My first solution is to restrict access. We've created Amy, and now, just by a click of a button over there, you can now select that this person's role is the role of a receptionist, and what will happen is that access will be denied, and she'll go from being able to see invoices, clinical receipts, to having access blocked, to only being able to use booking tools, patient validation, and documents upload. Okay, so we've now made like a security measure in terms of the POPI compliance. Okay, but now as it is, there's still a lot that's going on in the diary. So now the next thing I can do once the access has been restricted is like, why are those buttons even there if I'm not using it? They're taking up user interface real estate. So let's clean up the diary and take some things out so it goes from being so comprehensive to at least being customizable to Amy, so that every button she clicks has a purpose. She's not confused by anything else that's going on. And this is where we can now adjust our settings. And I am the practice manager with super user access, which then allows me to now untick anything that Amy does not need to use. She doesn't need to use the receipts, invoicing, downloading of statements, so forth and so forth. And you can make your selections in that manner. And also up top as well, in the navigation part, and you can select per role and untick everything that does not need to be used. Okay, now once we've done that, we can see now that everything that we've taken out is no longer there. So when Amy gets into the office, she knows every button I have here, everything that I see here is specific to my role. We've also taken out the system navigation, some of the system navigation tabs here, so that she comes in and she's only focused on the diary. Okay? And we make sure that Amy is the one that's there. Okay? And also here, we've taken out some things as well. We've taken out like render policies here as well, so that she's set to a diary having times here on the side. Let's go over to the next person. We've got the medical practitioner as well. He's focusing on clinical matters only. So over there as well, we've customized his diary as well there, and we've stacked his diary as well. He's still got option to change his render policies, but for now we've stacked his appointment schedule according to type. So he knows that, okay, these are all my consultations, these are all my follow-ups, and everything is stacked in that manner, and you can prepare accordingly, right? So it's stacked in that manner. And finally, we've got Tabo, who is the billing clerk, and he, of course, has access to everything financial, and he's more worried about all the treated patients. So the doctor stacks by type. Tabo prefers to stack by status, the status of the patient within the practice. So he's more concerned with all the patients that have been treated and are waiting to be invoiced. So the first, you can see by that color coding over there, that's all the patients that have been treated. Okay, so that helps us. And then the practice manager will now have an oversight role, right? And will be able to better lead, and he can oversee the entire diary screening. Like how I explained the diary screening in the beginning, he's got access to everything, he's created the roles, he's assigned access, and he's made layout changes, right? And now he can troubleshoot proactively, so he knows what's going on before anyone else, and he can, deal with certain things accordingly. Okay. So there are some tools that the practice manager can use. Yes, some of the other roles can also use it, but for the sake of this example, I'm going to stick it to Sam, the practice manager. He can use the minimizer tool, right, to multitask between things, right, without having to commit to anything. He can make custom booking types for those times when it's like a seasonal flu vaccine. He creates custom booking types to just make workflow better. And he can track the full patient journey because he sees the entire diary as well. And he sees all those booking icons. He's got everything, so he can track exactly what's happening. If there's any problem, he can always call Amy and say, okay, this patient is now with you. How are things going over there? And he can track everything accordingly in that manner. He can also design shortcut keys for himself just to move between the system quicker for himself and open and close certain things. And he can also monitor the system health on the About tab, right? Where he can check the services that are running, he can review his price list updates, and he can see the medical aid contract statuses, all right? So the minimizer tool, I just want to give you an example of the minimizer tool. As you can see there, let's say I've got the reporting screen open. And while I have the reporting screen open, I want to go over to the data details. I can minimize and close that specific screen without having to commit to saving it or losing the information that I'm working on. Same way as with Windows, you can always just minimize something and you sort of like pause it and always come back to it and finish off that task. So you can always minimize as you move across the system. Another thing that we can do, as we said, make the custom booking types. Maybe it's winter season and there's a lot of people who need a flu vaccine. We can always then set up a flu vaccine, and we know that we've got a script that will always populate when the person who comes for this vaccine visits the practice. And another thing we can do is add booking reminders, automated booking reminders. So if a patient, let's say, schedules an appointment for next week and I'm booking him today, I don't have to now remember again and say, oh, we've got a patient tomorrow, now let me check what's happening. Automatically, we schedule for a booking reminder to go out 1 day before the booking time. Automatically, just by setting this up. And even in that booking reminder, you could always add time there as well, although I did it in this example. You could say 1 day before or at 12, the booking reminder sends. In that booking reminder, you can ask the person to say, please confirm with 1 if you're confirming the patient, if you're confirming the appointment, if you're canceling the appointment with 2, so forth and so forth. You can take all that information, tally it up, and you know exactly the next day, I've got so many confirmed bookings, so many open up bookings, and if there's anything else that I need to do, then I can call those specific patients that haven't responded. So it works, it helps workflow a whole lot better, right? And as I said, the booking statuses as well, Sam can keep up with that. He knows who's booked and who's arrived. He knows who's in consultation, and he knows who's treated. So he can always track, according to each one of those. And if something hasn't turned green, he can always check up and say, okay, Tabo, what's going on? Has the patient been invoiced? Are things good there? So forth and so forth. All right. And over here, this is just the shortcut keys. Of course, you can create, if he's going to open the clinical. Now you can always open the clinical screen, add it to the minimizer. Let's say, for instance, open the invoice screen, add it to the minimizer, and work faster and easier in that manner according to the shortcuts that he can create as well. Okay. And here we have the about page that I was telling you about. So this is the overall system health. So he can know, right, from the get-go how the connection of the system is. He can know whether the problem is with him and his internet, or whether there's a web problem between the connection to the actual system, right? So you can check all that on the side. All his price lists and medical aid statuses are there as well. You can keep track of those. And he can also keep track of like release notes and bug fixes that have now been published on the system. So he can always stay a step ahead and know that if there's a new thing that has been upgraded, or if there's a bug fix, he can then, speak to his staff accordingly that this is what needs to be fixed. If staff will need training, he can know ahead of time that we've got a new release, and he can then find out what the release is and schedule the training as and when necessary. All right. So now, what is the result of all this that we've done? It will result in faster workflows. We've created custom bookings. We made some shortcuts for ourselves. We defined the roles. And because we've defined the roles and restricted access and customized our layout, we've got fewer mistakes that can happen. Once we have fewer mistakes, we also have simpler trainings that can be done, because each and every single training is now role specific. So we've got simpler training, and as a result of that, we now have happier teams. Okay, so then the diary becomes more than just a schedule. It becomes a customizable workspace and a command center all in one. So the diary now is not as complicated because we can always adjust it to suit how we want to run our practice. Okay? And I hope you can appreciate what we've done here, because what we've essentially done is create a system. The system we've created with Amy, Thabo, and Dr. Smith can be scalable. You can take the same system and implement it in Cape Town, take the same system, implement it in Bloemfontein, Durban, right? Because it's scalable, and we've complied with POPI, with restricted access where access needs to be restricted. And we also do have an international footprint in countries like Canada, New Zealand, not forgetting our neighboring countries, Botswana, Mozambique. And the reason why this system is scalable is because the system is sound. It works. It's not by coincidence that GoodX has been in the game for over 4 decades. The system works. And as I draw to my conclusion, I would like to invite you to visit our training booth for more information, or just to see how you can then customize your diary to your liking. And please also visit all the other booths as well, and let's see how we can work together and make your practice a practice of the future. I thank you.
Sorry, does anyone have any questions for Siya?
Thank you very much, Thabo. I have a few questions. The first one relates to the bookings. When we schedule a booking, there's an SMS. We've enabled the SMS that goes to the patient. However, if there is a change in the schedule and we need to move the booking to a later slot, we get charged another SMS. So, I don't know how we can set it up such that when we do those movements, maybe I'm running 15 minutes late, then I don't get charged for the second SMS. So that's the one question. The second one, there's more, but let me stop it. The second one is on WhatsApp integration. Are you considering it? We are finding that sometimes with the SMSs, the patients don't always, respond to the SMSs, and even the emails as well. but a platform that seems to be very workable is WhatsApp. So please comment on that as well.
Thank you very much for your questions. And as far as the SMSs are concerned, this is primarily on the communication, right? And now I would like, please, that is something to consider, to say now, because the reason why it charges is because even though you're sending the first SMS, right, that has a charge on its own, and the second SMS also has to be sent as well, so that has a charge on its own as well. So to differentiate between the two is something that could be considered. We'll have to see how that can be worked around, right? Because now if we say you can send 2 SMSs at once, how do we then differentiate between this first SMS that you sent and the second one? So it becomes something that's a bit of a gray area that we have to consider. And as far as the WhatsApp is concerned, that would be a very good solution, because I highly doubt that we would bill for you to send a message via WhatsApp, right? So that it will then cancel out the first problem we've had, where the SMS is being charged once we implement things like WhatsApp and so forth. So I do implore you, please join us also there in the booth, and we can now then discuss further to see how far we are in terms of like establishing the WhatsApp terms of communication. All right, thank you.
Okay. The mic person has said I must ask again. On the issue of consent forms, I don't know if they are going to be covered at another session. Yeah. I need advice on what's the best way to do it, because we've been doing it manually, but we are moving towards a paperless practice. So what would be the best way? In my mind, I'm thinking of a form, a QR thing, and you know those things better than me. But is there an easier way to deal with the consent form and minusing the paper-based way we are doing it paper-based? The second question is on health ID integration of the diaries. So I don't know how far you are also with that. I service a lot of Discovery members, but I find that my time now, I can't split myself between 2 diaries, my surgery diary and the health ID diary. Is there something in the works to integrate the two? I do use that button, that Discovery ID button on GoodX. But if I wanted to do virtual consultations on the Discovery side, I actually need to move from the GoodX diary and move over to the health ID diary.
On the second question, I think we should go over to the dev department to tell you how that integration would work. On the first one, I think maybe PDF printovers to now automate the consent forms. That's something that's there already. So the form is already there, pre-populated. And once we use the PDF printover, it populates the form. Like from the patient side, you put your placeholders. So the form is already populated with each patient's detail differently. So you've got that one full form with the PDF printover, then you populate on top of that, and I think that will serve as a better consent form. Oh, there's also MyGC for them to be for the form to get to them, and they can sign it there as well. We've got e-signatures as well. People do have the e-signatures, so the signing of the form would work in that manner. Yes. Last question.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is very basic with regards to entering a new patient profile. When we normally make a booking, we don't see the patient face to face. It's over the phone. So the question is, we've never gotten training with regards to that little photo of the patient. How would that work in two different ways? How do we upload it, right? And with that question in mind, would we be using, like, for instance, a laptop where I'm already connected onto my GoodX, take a photo using the laptop camera of the patient and then have that uploaded? Or would I be using a remote device, cell phone or something like that, or some type of digital camera that's connected into our PCs or something like that to upload it? But that would then be dependent on when that new patient arrives eventually for their first time consultation to see the doctor. How?
100%, 100%. I do understand your question. So if the patient has not been to the practice and you're creating a file for the patient, you can create the file without the picture at first. You're correcting that. So you can create everything, and then there are ways to then upload. We've got the mobile capture app. I stand to be corrected if it's only for practitioners at this moment, or whether also people who are creating bookings can also use the cloud capture app. What that is, essentially, it connects the system. It's like the mobile version of the system, if I could say that. So you could use your phone as well to then capture the patient's photo and send that specific picture, that information, over into the actual patient file. And then you can verify from that moment. But if the patient is not with you currently, they could also then send the photo as well, and you can upload it from your computer. So there's two ways. You can upload via the cloud capture, which will then connect it over to your phone, and you take the picture, or the patient themselves can send you the picture, and you can take an upload file, go to where the picture is, where the patient had sent, and you can upload it in that manner. And that would be nice as well once we have integrated the WhatsApp into it, because now the patient could also then send it on WhatsApp, and that communication could all be integrated and seamless.